Welcome to FanX, day 3. How are you guys doing? Surviving?
Yeah, doing good. So.
Oh no! Do we have... Uh-oh. Mike.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Here, let's go this way. How about that?
But it should be working.
Yeah.
That's
Hello.
what we're gonna do. Here you go. You take this one.
Hello.
I'm gonna take this one.
Aaron, you take this one. That one work?
Boom, 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 boom. Yeah.
Wireless, baby.
Okay. And this doesn't need to stand up in everybody's
That works.
face.
All right.
There you go.
Works.
Now it works.
We're good. So 3 days. How's it been? I know this is not your first visit. Is it your first visit?
Yes, it's my first time here. It's great. Everybody's been super nice. A really well-run show. So thank you for having me here.
This was going to be a Bionic Duo panel. Then it was just you. And now it's a family affair.
Yeah.
Which is great. So the conversation is going to probably meander a little bit as we talk about you guys. But let's talk about you first. The Bionic Woman was so that you started in modeling. Let's start with that. You started as a model-ish.
Boring.
Okay, fine. I know. Okay, fine. Boring. You were a model. But then you hit this. You had your it was a 2-episode arc in the $6 Million Man, I believe.
Well, it started with 2, and then they killed me. And then they brought me back, and then they brought me back to life and lost my memory. So there was another 2. And so I couldn't get married to him. And then you all are responsible for this series, I got to tell you, and your parents, because that's what made it the series. That's what brought her back to life, was everybody writing in saying, that's crazy. You know,
that's crazy. Nowadays, it wouldn't be that polite. They wouldn't say that's crazy. There would be other things bandied about. But you're right. How many great TV shows have been saved over the years by fans going, that is incorrect?
Yeah.
I believe Star Trek being the first big one that was saved. But yeah, you were.
Oh, really?
You were saved by the fans, which God bless them. Or we don't get this great character and this great extension of that universe. And then after season 2, I believe they canceled you, but then you moved to another network.
Yes, NBC.
NBC picked you up. Probably one of the smartest things NBC has ever done.
But then they fired me right at the very end of that season.
Well,
okay, so here's the nuance that you're missing. The reason that we were dropped at ABC was because just as our series came on and was really grabbing hold, there was a new director of development at ABC. And like big corporations, I'm sure you've heard the new CEO comes in and they want to clear the house, bring on their own people. Well, this fellow was doing the same thing with programming. He didn't want things that he had not developed on there. 6 Mil was already very well received and high. And so this my show came on, and he started sending out PR that was just saying how bad our ratings were. Now, then we didn't have internet. We didn't have a way of you all knowing what was really going on. And only the people in the inside of the business and the other networks. So when he did this negative campaign about it, everybody's going, oh, they're going down. That's unusual. Anyway, blah blah blah. And they started buying into it, and NBC went, that's ridiculous. We're fine. Come over here. So we did that, and then it started to go again. Now, NBC was the third in line. There were only 3 stations then, right? And NBC was on, as far as ratings go, their company ratings were the least. There was ABC, CBS, and then NBC. And so they wanted to build up their business a little bit better. So since this guy was so successful with ABC, they hired him away from ABC. He came to NBC. And he went, get that show out of here. Oh, so I was fired twice from the same man at a different network.
That you almost can't write that.
I know.
that if you tried to write that and sell it, they'd be like, no, no one's going to buy that. That just doesn't make any sense. Unless the network was Fox. Dorian, how did it feel when you were growing up? Did you know that your mom was basically a superhero?
Well, it was kind of like the family business. There wasn't any frame of reference that it was different in that kind of way, right? Like, so mom's an actress, dad's a stuntman. When I went to work with them, wherever that was, it was on set, right? So it's like they did the same job sort of in the same space. So it didn't really have a lot of frame of reference. And they said, the funny part is when people were like, oh, how was it growing up? I was like, I grew up in a trailer. And they're like, yeah, but your thing. I was like, no, I was in her trailer, but it was still a trailer.
Take your kid to work day was really interesting at your house. That is how that works.
Day.
Every day was take your kid to work day.
We were always there.
So why did you gravitate more towards stunts to begin with?
I don't know. I was just always very just kind of athletic and was put in to, almost every sport that was there available. And we were all just very active kids, playing outside a lot and living next to the ocean and boogie boarding and swimming and bicycling and playing baseball and different stuff. So it just it kind of became an easier concept to just jump into something like, oh, you just have to be physical. Oh, I can do that. So we were almost having these skills brought to us as kids, not knowing we were going to use them later. Right. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So your dad, obviously a stuntman. Do you feel like he pushed you, or was he just trying to keep you active and busy boys to curb that energy? Did he realize early on, or did there come a point where you realized that he realized you were good at this, or this was something you might do moving forward, as opposed to following mom and just being in front of the camera with actual lines and not getting set on fire or thrown off a building?
Yeah, right. I think I don't fully know the exact time frame of when that was in there, but I think at some point he probably knew, like, look, I'm just going to give you all the tools that I can give you and put you in the situations to have these skills for later, and we'll let you dabble as you get older, and then
were you when you did your first job, it was just hey, would this be fun? Why don't you come do this, right?
Yeah. So it wasn't an overly forced thing.
Talk about that just a little bit.
I guess.
I don't think he forced you.
Yeah, no, like it wasn't forced, but it was brought up. But because
if you were
it was
7 or 8?
11.
11.
11. Yeah.
You were
I'm sorry,
11. And your
11?
dad came
Yeah,
and said,
got
"Do you
my-
want to come to work
Obviously,
with me?"
someone was not paying attention to the child labor laws.
Well, prior to that whole thing, though, that was the generation. Like I started late compared to my other friends and their kids too. I mean, they were starting at like 5 and 6 sometimes for doing stunts, because if you're the son of a stunt person, you knew how to play fight and do all these other things, and you could double for an actor that was a kid. And then later on, they changed it to where they had like little people that were doing it for kids at that point too. But still, I mean, even now it's like few and far between, but most of the kids that get hired to do stunts are the sons and daughters of stunt people.
They are actual
They
second,
are.
third
So my
years.
daughter almost got her first SAG job like a year and a half ago, like was going to double a kid, like floating down in a river, like pretending to be dead. So we're practicing in the bathtub and putting like wax balls up her
No,
nose.
sweetie, I
and
need
her,
you to
like,
come
trying
into the
like,
I need
hold
you
her
to come
back.
into the bathroom. We need to practice drowning.
Yeah,
now.
and she's great. And she's like, how did I do, Dad? Did I do? I was like, no, let's clock it again. Like she was, yeah. So it just becomes kind of the norm in that way too. And if they don't like it, then you're not going to force them to do it.
No, I don't think you can. Well,
There's other friends that I've had that are second generations that had that, and it's funny now, but it wasn't funny then.
Did you ever worry about them doing that stuff as a?
No, not really. I think everybody asks that, and for the most part, no, because they're so careful. I mean, the stunt business it's not just a bunch of old cowboys saying, "Hey, I can do that. I fell off 3 times like that before in my life. Like, I'll do that for you." It's not that anymore. They're so careful. They're precise. They measure. They weigh. They do air. Whatever you call it, wind shit. What do you call it?
Yeah.
It's very scientific as much as you can, and then of course there's life that can come into it, and something can get fumbled up, or somebody can make a miscalculation or something, and people can get hurt. But I'll let you give them the statistics, how many people actually get hurt on a ratio basis compared to you driving to work every day, or
Right.
your kids walking home from school, or playing football for your high school league. I mean, you know, it's so little, it's so few ratio wise. So, and I knew that. I'd done a lot of, you know, Bionic. I knew the whole thing. So I wasn't really that worried. And I know Henry's super careful, their dad, and they were following and just as brilliant in their own young ways. I could see it in them already that they were, you know, not with each other, but.
Well, not that you saw. No, so on Bionic, a lot of stunts, a lot of fights, a lot of action. Was that difficult for you to do the parts that you could do before the stunt people came in and said, okay, we have this now? But how much did you feel comfortable doing?
It wasn't difficult because I only did the things I thought I could do. So my limit was a 1-story jump. That's it.
Off a platform one to about what, 9, 10 feet, 12 feet, something like that.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess it would be. So that big hotel down in Hollywood. Anyway, there's a big awning there, and then there's planters on top of the awning at the entrance of the hotel. Then there's windows of the rooms that go on up from there. And this stunt was, I might have been the beauty episode. I don't remember the beauty contest, but whatever it was. My stunt double was to jump out. Because usually, okay, I'm backing up a little bit. Usually when you see a scene where we're doing a jump down, you see me jump off of a platform that you can't see and kind of disappear, and then you see Rita, my stunt double, jumping down, and they pick her cut. It's 3 different cuts. My takeoff, her drop, and then my landing, which they rig up a platform for me to jump off of and jump to the ground. So they put all 3 of those together, so it looks like one big long jump. Well, this time they said we can actually, because of the way it's structured, we can actually get a shot that doesn't have any cuts in it. And because Rita's going to jump out of the window, the 2 stories up, drop down into her airbag or whatever they had her jumping into, which was behind the bushes, camera's still running. I go around the bushes and jump off because I'm hiding in behind the bushes. And then I jump off and down to the ground. So they had the first consecutive shot of a jump was that, and that's kind of how they did it without the breaks.
That's actually really cool.
And I went into an airbag.
As a stunt guy, how often do you guys come up with creative stretches to do stuff like? I mean, so much today is controlled, and you know there's safety lines, and you know we'll wipe those out in post, and you know we can CGI this and the other thing. But how often do you guys practically look at something and go, we can play with that?
Depending on the person and the style of the film too, of what we need to do, or if it's budgetary constraints can be an issue. But we always like to try to do it practical, you know.
It always feels, as a viewer, I think I can speak for everyone. It always feels better.
It does. It absolutely
practical.
does. And I have a friend of ours he's a second unit director, and he does like most of the Fast and Furious movies, if not all of them. And he always pushes for practical stuff. And whenever it's a sequence that he does, whenever you're like, oh, that was fake, you're like, no, that was real. You know what I mean? Like there's like a giant like wrecking ball that comes down and smashes cars and throws them out of the way. Like that was a real wrecking ball. With us, we'll do it in CG and we'll just pull the car out and we can do this thing. And he's like, why? He's like, we could do it for real. You do it safely, but it does feel that much better. And you don't realize it too when you're like, man, why was that scene so much cooler than the other ones? You're like, because it actually was real. Whether you maybe added some fake smoke or some CGI debris, it ended up, your body knows that it's
the
better.
Important parts.
Yeah, the important parts.
All the key parts are actually there. That is incredibly important.
And the thing that she was talking about with the thing is called a Texas switch, is what they end up doing. Yeah, for stunts. So we do this and that, blah, blah, and he hits this guy and he falls down. We'll do a Texas switch for that. Okay, cool. And it's kind of like this thing.
All the stuntman shorthand.
Yeah, the lingo.
Got a book of that? Can I pick that up somewhere?
Right,
because if it's like the Con Man Bible, where all the different cons have names, all the stunt maneuvers have names.
That's an interesting idea.
So back to Bionic. So you know, okay, so you go to NBC, and before you get fired again by that idiot, what about that show did you like? What about Jaime Sommers did you like playing or portraying most in that show? I mean, because there's action, there's there's spy stuff, there's fight stuff, but what? Aside, if that's the most important thing, that's cool. But I mean, was there something about Jaime Sommers that you just went to work every day and you were like, I like this part?
Well, I was very involved in creating who Jaime was. So it wasn't just I showed up and went, oh, we're going to do this today. As a matter of fact, when I accepted the job, I said, if we can have collaboration rights, then I'll do the show. Because I didn't want this first female action character ever on TV to just do the stories that have been revamped for me, that were for men, and that I'm going to be basically a man in a skirt conquering the world with my might, So there was so many other things that we wanted to put into it, or I wanted to put in it, and they embraced that. They loved it, and because we were so demanded by the public, you gave me power. The networks let us try things. So we did things the way we wanted to do them, and made her feminine, made her sensitive, made her intuitive, helpful with things that typically I don't want to use the word hero, but the agent wouldn't be dealing with.
Right.
The agent wouldn't try to talk to this young kids. Anybody remember the episode of when the king, somebody about the king and the son from the Middle East? Remember that? And I did the belly dance. Well, he had a son, and the son was always getting put down by his dad. So she's kind of mentoring him and helping him a little bit while she's trying to take down his dad. What other spy would do that? So, but because I wanted to keep her human, I wanted to keep her female, I wanted to keep her those natural instincts and the things that we all have, male and female, inside of us. And so it was just, I wanted to keep it real. And that's what brought me to work every day. That's what brought me to the series, because it was sci-fi and we could do whatever we wanted.
That's true. That's awesome. Yeah, you mentioned the Jaime was one of the first real female heroes, protagonists. But before that, I was trying to think. It's like you have Emma Peel, but she was very businesslike. She was an agent, in the Avengers. So she kicked butt. Series? Yeah, the British series with was it McGowan? I can't even remember anymore. But British spy. But she was very businesslike. She was very task oriented. So, but yeah, Jaime comes along, and one of her covers is she becomes a teacher, if I recall correctly.
Well, yeah, that was because they had to keep her alive, because everybody wrote in and said just horrible things like, how could you kill her like that? My God. There were even children's hospitals that wrote in to the network and said, what, were you crazy? Look, we've got so many kids in our hospital was absolutely traumatized by her dying. They're in here fighting for their life, and you have the quintessential figure of male today as Lee Majors, and now you've got this female version of that, and you just killed her. And so we got to bring her back to life. So what are we going to do with her? She can't go back on the tennis circuit because she's now bionic. That doesn't work. And so,
not fair.
Yeah. And so kids needing to know she's okay, let's make her a teacher. So that's how she became a teacher.
That's an excellent choice.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
And I just lost it. I'll get there. It was right there in my head. But yeah, going back to Bionic, the spinoff of $6 Million Man. So you come on, you're a love interest, they kill you, they bring you back, but you have amnesia. It's like, oh no, it almost could have been a soap opera, but it's not, because of the way it winds up getting played and done. I wanted to ask about the other two series regulars, Oscar and Rudy.
They had to do the amnesia thing, because if they didn't do amnesia, then I would have stayed on the show. They didn't want that.
Right.
And one of the formula things that are in series, male-oriented series formula, especially back then, was that he can have girlfriends, but there's always the chance that the audience, women who are fantasizing about being with him, if he gets married, that's not cool. you know, so, so they had to get rid of me entirely.
But-
And that's why the amnesia,
Yeah.
so that I wouldn't have to stay on the show.
Yeah, well, it's funny because you might have been the one. This might have been the one instance where fans would have been like, "We're okay with that." You know, and it took them another 15 years to come back and actually put you guys and 3 movies to put you guys together. Is it weird as an actor to drop back in at these big increments and be that character again? But it's not just a continuation. It's, you know, there's a big gap there. So how do you approach refinding Jaime Sommers at that point in her existence, and then at this point in her existence, and then later on? I mean, because, you know, those movies, there's 5-6 year gaps in there, and it's like that's not insubstantial in a human being's development. You know, a lot of things happen. Yeah. So how do you come back and look at Jaime and go, okay, how is Jaime the same as she was, but how has she grown? So what do you do?
Well, I grew. So it was not very heavy research. It was just, I just pulled from my life. I've also, this many more years later, I'm also now have children. I also, you know, so I just drew from myself, as I did with her initially. I wasn't trying to make Jaime much different than me when I did it to begin with. So, and because I was involved in developing and helping to develop it, I mean, I never had to deal with losing arms and having to have things put back on, but, you know, having broken my tailbone and not being able to move and have my mother turn me over for a while as it was healing and stuff like that was, you know, I had things I could draw on that from my own experience. And so it's kind of the same way as far as the emotional and mental aspects of someone else's growth. You only have what you have to pull from anyway.
That is all, yeah.
And as much as you'd like to be totally different than yourself, you know, when you're not totally different from yourself, if you're doing a real good job, you know, you see somebody doing something really horrible that was so real, oh my God, I really want to go to dinner with them. You know, it's like, when you think about it in those terms.
Dorian, as a stuntman, you become someone that you're not. As a stuntman, you have to embody this person up to and through the stunt. So it's not you doing this run, fall, jump through whatever. It's actor X that you're doing the run, fall, jump through. How much time? I know stuntmen and regular stuntmen and their regular people, they get very close. Did you start with a regular person or a person that you regularly doubled for or stunted for, or were you kind of that he's really good at that, bring him in here for this?
Yeah, I kind of ended up being like a jack of all trades, because the generation that I was, like my parents' generation, in terms of, especially in the stunt world too, is you had to like kind of know how to do everything, you know, a little bit. You had to learn to ride a horse or ride a motorcycle, or you know how to swim, or you could, you know, like you said, play sports and throw with both hands, you know, these kind of very dexterous situations. So because of my body type as well, I wasn't called upon to double a consistent person, because you're like, hey, who's that other 6'5", you know, 160-pound guy that's a superhero or something? It's not really like normal until a show called iCarly came along, which is a Nickelodeon show. Yep. And I ended up doubling, you know that show? So
all you iCarly fans get in line and ready to ask your questions.
So I ended up stunt doubling for Spencer, who was the lead. So Carly was the younger sister, and then the older brother was doing all the banana peel falls and falling down the stairs and lighting his head on fire and doing all that stuff. So that was the most consistent stunt doubling job that I've had outside of like movies. Right. You know what I mean? But it wasn't continuing outside of that. So it was very sporadic in the beginning when I was younger. Yeah.
And as your career developed and the movies start coming, you moved into body doubling for people of 6'4", 160 pounds. And you moved into more
creature acting.
Okay, fine. We'll call it creature acting, which is where I'm going. And you're moving into more in front, more Dorian is in this movie, not Dorian is behind this movie. You know, a little bit, I was reminded kind of the career development of Doug Jones.
Oh, that's awesome.
In the best possible way.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
Have you realized? I'm sure someone's pointed that out to you. Doug's probably pointed that out to you if you've run into him. He's like, oh, you're doing what I did. But again, weird body types, tall, thin, athletic, tough to find a spot. So when you find a niche, and with Doug, it's creature acting. What is your, where do you feel you are best suited to kind of make this transition out to be that guy?
That's where I got my start actually doing creature work. Was my first job was doubling him on a movie called The Time Machine in 2001.
The Guy Pearce.
The Guy Pearce
God,
version.
that movie is so good if you have not watched it.
Yeah, I got called because I was, you know, doing stunts and like acting kid parts and stuff. And then it came around to where I got a call. They're like, hey, are you claustrophobic? I was like, no. They're like, all right, cool. We're going to have you get in a creature suit and double this guy named Doug Jones. I'm like, okay, who's that? And I was like, oh, that's the guy from Hocus Pocus. And he was from this and that and all these different things. And so we became friends. And then we did Fantastic Four, the Silver Surfer. And so I doubled him for the Silver Surfer. And then we just, you know, grew
which is
our
weird because in a way he's just doubling the CGI and then you're doubling him.
Which is funny, and that was
weird.
one of the most disappointing promotional pushes of a show that I've ever worked on. It was because he's in a suit, like I'm in a suit,
right?
Like we were, you know, we're flying through the air like on wires and on these giant like gimbals that had a board strap to it and coming into these things, and they go, oh, it's all CGI, and I go, no, it's not. No, it wasn't. They had a promote so late now. I don't care. They had this fake promotional photo shoot that they wanted to do. Like, hey, can we put you in a green screen shoot? And we're going to say that it's all CGI. And I'm like, no, it's not CGI. Like, why? Well, everybody thinks CGI is cooler. I was like, how about the fact that your suit costs you like $1 million? That would be cool. So it's the most expensive suit known to man. And at the time it was the most expensive suit built for a film. And they're just going to try to sweep it under the rug and say that we don't exist.
And you could die by falling off that board. You're not going to die falling off a green screen, traditionally.
Traditionally, right? So it was just kind of like disappointing in that realm, too, to where it was so cool that, you know, the certain stuff. And yes, there were bits that were CGI, but as a whole, like, Doug was in it and I was in it. We were physically in a really cool, you know, suit made by Spectral Motion. And they were a fantastic company, and they just designed a really cool suit. So that's just kind of the hard part of that gray area where they try to pump up, you know, like even like the whole stuff with AI now and all that jazz. I'm like, that's a whole other conversation.
But
you still need people. That's the funny part. Even like my job description for me is that they come up to the booth and they say, oh, you were this or you were that. And they're like, wasn't that CGI? I was like, behind that's me. You know what I mean? The person moving, you know, and there's other people that do that, the person moving and creating the movements and the body language and the action and even the initial scream until they kind of tweak it and make it more superhuman is a person behind that. And so that's never really seen too much.
Yeah, the verbiage has kind of changed. It used to be motion capture, and now it's performance capture. And I think Andy Serkis really kind of drove that with all of the incredible work that he did behind the scenes. Yeah. Do you like performance capture better than mocap? Do you feel better about that term?
No, because it's still different. It's because you're capturing the performance motion capture. I mean, those two words are kind of the same to me, because then they go, oh, well, did you know, like, are your body double this and that? Well, I was like, well, for Cad Bane, right? Like, right. I'm Cad Bane and Corey Burton is the voice of Cad Bane. We both are that character. Right. You know what I mean? So in that, there's trying to like split hairs with creating other verbiages to, you know, like overly create a specific niche to justify it. And I'm like, why can't we both be the same thing? You know, because we both are. Like, one of the perfect examples that I still love is from the first Ninja Turtles live action movie. Mm-hmm. If you look at the credits in that film, all the credits of like Leonardo, Donatello, whatever, the first set of credits is the guys that were in the suit. Doing the work in the suit. And then after that section comes down, it says voice of Leonardo, so-and-so, voice of Donatello. So literally everybody, because it's a visual media. Right?
Who directed that movie?
I don't know. I should know that.
I should know that too.
Well, if I was on it,
who knows?
I would know it. But that was...
it wasn't big.
But in that, they paid respects to that process. And I think that's kind of the lost art at this point too, because now the voice, even though people are super talented at the voices and who they are, you know, but they're giving more credit to like the voice than the person that you're watching on screen first. And I'm like, that's not totally fair in my mind, but that's just me fighting the fight.
Yeah, Doug went through that with Hellboy, the first two Hellboys.
He sounded perfect. And then he did the second one.
I know. I was going to say they dubbed him in the first one, and then they apparently didn't want to pay another actor, so we'll just use the same guy who's actually already saying the words anyway.
Yeah, well, it's because the actor that came in to double his voice came in day one and looked at the screen and was going to say the lines. He goes, "What's wrong with that?" He literally said it. He was just like, literally, what's wrong? He sounds just like me, and it's great. Like, why am I here? And he was contracted to do it, finished up the deal, and then part 2, they pushed it. Like, dude, I don't need to do this again. Doug sounds great.
That's integrity in this business.
Yeah.
David Hyde Pierce.
Nice. Yeah. And they sound so much alike. Like, what's
They
the
do.
big difference?
It's so close. It's freaky.
Yeah, but
so.
it was a name thing. You know, they kind of go, oh, we're going to know his name versus Doug Jones.
I guess that's part of the a function of the loss of seeing the actor when you're seeing a character. If I don't see her face or your face, is it you? You know, I don't.
Right. Yeah.
You know, so it's I kind of get that. Lindsay, is it interesting for you to watch his career develop now? It go from 11-year-old flaming stunt boy to where he is now. He's Cad Bane. Off the top of my head, I couldn't have named the voice of Cad Bane, but I knew it was you out there doing it. You know, and not everyone knows the 2 or 3 other guys that play the Mandalorian, but everyone knows Pedro. So, is it interesting for you to see him go from, again, a flaming 11-year-old to
You want to reword that?
the face? That's right.
How about that word?
So I like it. That's just how I'm going to refer to you from now on. Dorian Kingi, the flaming 11-year-old. But no, to be the face of a character that is huge in that fandom. Cad Bane, when they said Cad Bane's going to come, people lost their minds. And then he popped up. And everyone lost their minds again. And now, you're one honest David Hyde Pierce away from voicing Cad Bane.
I know. Corey Burton's amazing, by the way. So there's no discrediting Corey Burton's voice.
But what's it like as a mom to watch him work his way up through and get to where he's and it's still going? What is that like for you as a mom?
Well, it's great, but it's not. Having been where I've been, it's not like, wow, like, somebody who's never experienced that. It's probably different for me. It's not that I expected it or that I don't see it as wonderful. I am incredibly proud of him. And it's wonderful. It's wonderful where I get the wow is not because he's got a big part,
right,
or because he's got big fame. It tickles me because now we can do shows together.
You know what? That was actually one of my future questions. I was like, what is it? Is it weird going on the con circuit with your mom?
It's so cool. It's so weird.
Dorian, you want to go out tonight? We're gonna get some drink. I gotta go have dinner with my mom.
It's awesome. No, couldn't ask for like a cooler situation. She's also like the best acting coach ever, by the way. We're doing. I got this role I got to do. And who is this guy? It's a Star Wars thing. Just help me with these lines, please. And she's like, okay. So that was epic and so helpful.
Yeah.
So you're gonna work her into some kind of voice job for right. for season 2 or 3 or 4 of something in Star Wars, right? We're gonna see that line and we're gonna be like, wait, did that just happen? Mm-hmm. That would be awesome. If you would you do a Star Wars, just a one-off Star Wars voice?
Sure.
What kind of?
I have no idea. You're asking me what kind? With the stuff that you see on Star Wars?
Well, good.
I have no imaginations as more than any of that. So,
you want to be a hero? Do you want to be a villain? Do you want to be a what's the word I'm looking for?
Twi'lek.
A Twi'lek.
Yeah.
A what?
That's what she is. She's a type of what she is.
A toilet.
Twi'lek.
What did she say?
Twi'lek.
Oh,
with the Twi'lek. Yes.
Oh,
big...
Oh, is that what you are?
Yeah.
Okay. See how much I know about all that. And he wants me to.
I'm trying to
something
teach you
here.
guys. I'm trying.
He's working on it slowly. Okay. Now, thank you for the lesson. I now know this one.
We'll get her in as Cad Bane's arms dealer, arms supplier.
Oh, there you go.
That way, no one will catch on. We'll unbill it and we'll see who catches. That's what will happen.
I like that. I can do that.
I'm
always playing the good guy,
Yeah, I know. It's like, would you like to play a bad guy?
It all depends on what the bad guy is, what they're doing, and how it ends. Content is very important to me.
Such a cop-out.
It's not.
Would you rather do a dramatic character or a not a comedic character, but a more lighthearted character? Where would you rather be like, either like a stern police sergeant or evil arms dealer, or someone a little lighter that's fun to work with in a show? Where do you fall? Where do you want your character to be?
See,
for fun.
I think I've got versatility. Therefore,
so you get to mold your character.
But also, because I'd done so much drama, casting people don't think about me or even think to try me out on a comedy, which I've always wanted to do.
All right, comedy. You got it.
But that's, and as a voice, no, I don't think so.
No?
I'm good with mugging, I mean, my family's funny. My mom's funny. My grandmother was funny. I think I'm funny. And so to be able to bring nuances and stuff like that, that would be a really fun area for me to be able to work. And I mean, we did it in Bionic. There was a lot of funny stuff in there, my facial expressions and things, that we worked with in there. But never beyond that, really.
Yeah, that might be fun to see you in a more heavier comedic role. On Bionic, a lot of times, a lot of the stuff that I was reading coming into this, just to refresh my memory, is all the intellectual analysis. And a lot of them are like, oh, and it's it's an examination of Steve and Jaime coming to terms with they're not fully human anymore, and they're trying to do this what is a person kind of thing. And I was reading all that. And I was like,
wait, who's saying that?
The intellectual analysis of the shows.
Because we never said it on the show.
No, you never did. But did you ever feel like you were just thinking like, does Jaime act this way, or is Lee Majors acting as Steve this way? Maybe because is there a reaction there that's not human? And I asked this specifically because you had mentioned something, but the episode that jumped out to me in the Bionics was on the $6 Million Man. A friend of Steve's was a race car driver, and I can't remember the actor who played him off the top of my head. And he wound up getting, I think, 4-limb bionic replacement, but he couldn't handle it, and he couldn't drive anymore. And he was complaining because his reflexes weren't fast enough. They're like, well, we turned them down to normal, and they're like, I wasn't normal. And it's like, it's a weird thing to think about. It's like, what is normal? What makes a human? What makes one person more gifted than another? Did you guys ever think about that at all during the show? I mean, because a lot of pieces were replaced, but obviously Jamie's heart stayed intact. Steve's mind stayed intact. His sense of loyalty stayed intact. But at what point do you realize I'm not all the way what I was as a character?
It's kind of a mind game. I mean, I don't. We're going to open that door. It gets. I never felt Jaime feel not human. There was never that intention for her to have that struggle, although things could bring up that thought in her mind, but to me, I wanted her to be bigger. I mean, when you think about it, it's really all about your perspective. It's about what your mind does with this information. And it's like you take two different people who've lost limbs, and they have now artificial limbs. And this one is living very healthily and mentally as well, because they've been able to embrace that they are still themselves, that I am now this, and I have this. There's an and in there. Mm-hmm. It's not an I am. Whereas somebody else just can't quite make that leap. And it's very difficult and, depressing, and the image, self-image, all of that kind of thing, not feeling good enough. Whereas somebody else will come rolling up maybe on a wheelchair, or come walking up and they're like, how you doing?
Right.
Like, I'm here, kind of thing.
Positivity.
That attitude, I am here. And so they made the psychological challenge of remembering who they are, and just adding this to it. And the other person, until they can do that, it's a tough life. So Jaime did that. And we brought up, I think, little bits and pieces in certain episodes to kind of show that that's a struggle. But I always wanted to not to have her be more superhuman, but to have her challenges represent, especially because we were talking to kids as well as adults, that no matter what your challenge is, if you think about it right and you see about it, you can continue, you can go on, you can transcend that circumstance and be happy and be full and be productive. And, that's the attitude that we wanted to convey to the kids, which is a subliminal message of, come on, you can do it. So.
That's awesome. That's great. By the time we get to the third movie where you, Steve and Jaime finally get married, were you happy that they finally said, finally, we're going to make this happen?
You got to turn it around. We're doing another movie.
Okay.
Are we getting married in this one, guys?
Oh.
No. We're just, I said, well, if we're not getting married in it, I'm not doing it. That's how it came about. Because I said, we have pulled this audience, drugged them for years and years and years, and they're old enough now to sit here and think about it, not just be a little kid dreaming about it.
So we can all do the same thing.
So
Going, finally, it's about time.
Yeah. So they said, okay.
What the heck is wrong with you people?
Finally, okay, we will. So that's how it happened.
That's awesome. Yeah. And America was happy. The world might have been happy, but America was definitely happy at the time. Dorian, you grew up, and so you saw all those movies, you saw the series, you saw the movies.
Not really.
No,
Not at a young age.
a little bit later. But again, looking back on it, and especially now that you get to sit through all these panels and you get to hear all of the people that lived through this. Mm-hmm. Do you look at that pre-you time, I guess, differently? Do you look at? I mean, do things about your mom make sense more now? The way she does things, maybe what she tells you, the advice she gives you. Do you see that a little different now that you're kind of seeing her through their eyes? Yes, Dr.
I feel like
Phil's
I kind of already have as time goes on and I got older. I got to, see somebody, we're at a restaurant, maybe having dinner, and somebody would come up and be like, hey, I really, I like the show. And somebody else would come up and be like, hey, you changed my life because of the situation that I was going through at the time. And this episode helped me get through one of the worst times of my life, kind of thing. So like having these pin drops of all different walks of life were so impactful. By the time, I got old enough to really kind of take it all in, I realized how much different she is and was in taking this responsibility of being influential. I say more so than a lot of other actors might do or have done. And it just shows like the oil and water mix of like how much different she is and how much more, why she was that much more impactful versus like, hey, I really like that guy and you're awesome. Like she literally was doing it for them versus like a lot of actors doing it for themselves, and they happen to have fans because of it. So she's like, her impact on the world and her fans supersedes most other actors that I've ever met and known based off of their personal stories.
Once you kind of processed all of that, has that changed the way you approach your work at all? Or was that just kind of drilled into you?
In my own way, it's different because the roles that I play, I feel aren't necessarily as heavy. I mean, they can be like a heavy situation and a really cool scene and different stuff, but my thing ends up coming to, all right, the best job that I can do in this moment is like being a fan myself, or like getting my nerdness on when I show up to a set and they're like, hey, you're going to be this comic book character. I'm like, sweet. And I was like, you know what this character does? He does this, he does this, he does this, he does this. And they're like, we're not going to do that. And I was like, well, you're stupid. Like
Henry Cavill gets fired for saying that.
Yeah, I just literally it's just so frustrating to where, so then I think that's when characters that I hopefully have been a part of and been like, hey, this needs to happen, or that's what I get from her. But like, I really kind of stick my foot in my mouth sometimes, but it's because as a fan, I want to see that. And they go like other stuff and they're like, well, we're not even like Silver Surfer in the beginning. And this was more Doug than me, obviously. But as a fan, I came up and I brought like comic books and I was trying to show them like things that he could have done and did do. And they're like, he might not even be on a surfboard. And we're like, what? He's going to be floating on a cloud of mist. And I'm just like, so he's surfing mist. Cool. You've already lost me. I'm a fan. And now I'm working on the movie. Eventually they, corrected themselves and put him on a board. But there's stuff like that. So where as a fan, I think that's maybe a little bit more of my caretaking of taking my job seriously. And then people come, hey man, that was really good. I was like, yeah, because I'm a nerd too. And this is what we did and this and that. You agree with me? Oh, perfect. So that's kind of what gives me gratification in that. And then coming into this sphere, we can like really bro out with the fans, which is cool.
If I can jump in and say something about the concept of what we're talking about is caring about everything and everyone, other than not just me and how it's going to affect me and help me and make me big or whatever. That's a life concept to me. And I feel that what I've seen in him, and he's got a great story, would you tell that story about the battle, the World War II story, where those principles I see in him, he lives his life with those. So it's not just about whether you're going to do it in a role as somebody who might have impact on it. No. Because, do you know what I'm talking about?
The one I said yesterday?
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Because that's what I'm talking about. So I see it in him when that tickles me as well, because it isn't about the character. Go ahead and tell them, then they'll understand.
Yeah, I think it's also too because people are so in this business, you're supposed to like do as you're told, and no matter what, like whether it is, and they go, well.
Yeah, I mean, I have more latitude to jump in and maybe rattle the cage.
Yeah. More
than he does, but that didn't stop him.
Yeah, like I don't mind getting fired if I can. if it's passing my morals or a safety issue, like you can go get somebody else, because I know you can. You know what I mean? Like go get somebody else, make it happen. But I was on a TV show and there was this big, massive battle sequence, and we had like tanks and hovercrafts and like military garb, and we're all these guys, and like these SEAL teams are coming up, and we're the bad guys. And I had some really good friends and family that were also working with us, and it was this big battle stunt sequence, and we're supposed to go over this ridge, and then these guys are coming up this way, and our first take, we do it, we all get shot, fall down, and then behind us are these explosions, and the hillside like slightly catches on fire. No big deal because it's behind us, another, 25 yards or something. So they take another 15, 20 minutes to like put out the fire, and they go, okay, now the mortars that were exploding back there, we're gonna do another take where they explode in front of us. And I go, they said, anybody have any questions? I go, I do. They're like, I'm like, what's in it? And because you can be, sometimes it's just powder and dirt, right? But then sometimes there's like fireballs that they have, and depending on what it is. So I knew the question. I go, what's in the mortar? They're like, oh, it's gonna look great. It's gonna look great. I go,
that's not an answer.
That's not an answer. Like, what's in the mortar? So what, you don't want to do it? And I go, okay, cool. It's gonna get weird. All right, let's go. Like I was just ready to like kind of fight for my friends and myself. And I go, look, that's not the question. We're probably gonna do it, but we need to know, like, if I'm gonna fall down and there's flaming chunks falling from the sky, I'm not going to land on my back. I'm going to land on my stomach, because then I'm going to, like protect myself, or these people are going to know it too. And it turned into this huge like fight on set verbally between me and the pyrofix guy. And he also had like a missing finger and like big scars on his face. And I'm like, I know you've been through the ringer, buddy. However, I don't feel like I want to walk home looking like that right now. And then the first AD got involved, and other people were sitting aside, and it turned into this big thing. He's like, well, what do you want? What do you want? He's like, I just want to know what's in it. And they finally never said it. And I said, well, what make you feel comfortable? I said, I want a wet down. And a wet down means you just come in with water and you spray down the area, so that way all this other brush that I'm laying right next to doesn't totally catch on fire. This thing will like singe and it'll go out. And I ended up.
Did they wet you down too?
No, they didn't wet us down, but they wet down the environment. So we did the take, everything was fine. And then, lo and behold, I didn't work for them ever again. But at the same time, I was like, at the time it was like my girlfriend, who's now my wife, was on the set as well doing that sequence. We had like other friends that are really close to me that were on set, and there was a bunch of us going to do this thing. But at that time,
even if it hadn't been your family,
it didn't matter. Yeah, I just couldn't justify.
Just amplified
something.
It. Yeah.
Yeah, that issue.
1 second. We've got like 2 minutes left, so we can wrap it up because he's going to have to get some people out of here. Are you guys going to be back at your tables after this?
Yes. Yeah.
Lindsay and Dorian will be back at their tables. Please feel free to swing by and say hello. Ask the question that you didn't ask here, that you had your chance to.
No.
They had their chance, but they didn't. So
All right, well, thank you all
Thank
for
you,
being here. I
everyone.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Dorian.